It's time for Ask Zach. This segment is the way I end every podcast. People who support me on Patreon, patreon.com/Zach Schomler. It's $1 a month. You can give me more money if you want, but if you give me $1 a month, you have access to submit questions to me using Patreon. I only accept questions from Patreon, but if you send me a DM on Patreon, you can comment on one of my posts. There's all kinds of ways you can contact me through Patreon. If you are one of my Patreon supporters, I will accept your questions. And then I don't pick your question necessarily, but I look at all the questions. And then the top couple questions I get, I look at and I pick the top couple to answer on the show. It's fun. I love it. We have 6 questions I want to answer today. I want to start with Evan. Evan writes in and says, Zach. He says, hey, Zach, I appreciate all you do for us providing content for us. I'm going to miss your podcast during your break, but I hope you tear it up this season on the football field. My question is, how do you think the air raid offense will translate to the NFL? Do you think it's going to start a revolution as teams begin using the concepts more and more? More and more? I guess the way to read that is, it's fun to practice it. Reading aloud's hard. He said, do you think it's going to start a revolution as teams begin using the concepts more and more? I did it wrong there again. Will it be comparable to the change in the last decade as the emergence of the 3-ball in the NBA? Yeah, it's hard to read aloud. So I guess the question, though, is the air raid offense going to change things? The 3-ball in the NBA is a great example and a great comparison where everybody has to shoot threes in the NBA. Yeah, see guys like DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, big guys shoot threes now. Al Horford shoots threes. Everybody on the basketball court tries to shoot threes because analytics say that's the best way to do it. 3-point shooting changed the game of basketball. Will the air raid have the same effect on the NFL? It's a great question. And in my opinion, so the Cardinals run the air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury, and I think they're going to be great with the air raid. Arizona is a wonderful place to run that kind of offense because they play indoors. So they play 8 games a year in a dome. They also play twice a year in California with the 49ers and the Rams. Those 10 games lend themselves quite well to an air raid offense where you throw nearly every play. You spread teams out. An air raid offense, if you don't know, usually you use 4 receivers. That's the way Cliff Kingsbury's done it so far with the Cardinals. You use 4 wide receivers to try to steal yards. You throw almost every play. And then if the team, here's the question though with the air raid. I think they have the horses to do it in Arizona. Their offensive line's not great, but they're getting the ball out quick. I like their wide receivers. I think their quarterback is fantastic. Here is the question with the Arizona Cardinals. When the Cardinals go 4 wide, teams are going to have to make an adjustment and put fewer guys in the box. What that means is they're going to have fewer defenders to stop the run. If teams put fewer defenders in the box, can the Cardinals run the ball effectively? When they have 5 defenders and 5 linemen to block them, can they win and run the ball well? That will dictate how well the air raid runs. I know it doesn't seem like it. I do think running the ball in the NFL still matters. And if they can't run the ball when they have numbers in the box, they're going to struggle because that's the key. You count the box in the air raid offense, go, oh, hey, they only have 5 defenders in the box. We have 5 guys to block them. We got to be able to run for 4 yards here. Now, here's the other main issue, man. In cold weather with the air raid offense, you struggle. Last year, I worked for the Pac-12 Network when, it was Fox Sports, actually. Last year was Fox Sports when Washington State played University of Washington in Pullman, Washington, in a blizzard. It was ridiculous. A ton of snow everywhere, and I was on the sidelines working. Washington State runs an air raid offense, and they couldn't catch the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. The ball was waterlogged. It was really heavy and covered in snow. They couldn't complete passes, and they could not beat University of Washington. Their offense didn't work because cold weather is, in my opinion, the biggest weakness of the air raid offense. Now, look, in the NFL, but again, if it's snowing, the ball's wet, and this is how it is. And you got to be able to run the ball in cold weather. Now, the Cardinals have an advantage, right? If they have home field advantage in the playoffs, they'll be fine. They'll play indoors, no problem. But if in January, you're asking the Arizona Cardinals to play a game at Soldier Field, or I'm trying to think of Green Bay, Wisconsin, man, in the snow, throwing the ball every play, good luck. Good luck. You got to be able to run the ball in the playoffs, in my opinion. And that's the weakness of the air raid offense in the NFL. I think the Cardinals are going to be fun to watch. I think they're going to put up a lot of points. I don't know if that'll translate to wins, but they will be fun. Will that translate to wins? Will that translate to Super Bowls? I don't know. but I think the air raid is going to be great in Arizona, and I cannot wait to watch how it works out. Thank you. That was Evan. Thank you for the great question. I really appreciate that. The next question is from Derek. It's a long one. A long one, but a meaningful one. I put this one second because I really, really liked it. Derek says this. Derek says, "Hey, Zach," with an exclamation point. So I wanted to shoot you a quick message thanking you for the awesome content you produce. It's nice to have a free podcast in which the host really knows their stuff. I didn't. That's not what I wanted. Sorry, that's cool, but whatever. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate it. I always wanted to extend my thanks for you spreading awareness on mental health. This is what I loved, man. He said, I am diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and schizophrenia. And although I am completely stable nowadays, these issues still mean a lot to me. I'm deeply sorry for your loss of a loved one. I'm wishing you and your family the best. Derek, thank you so much for sharing your story. Mental health is a huge issue. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you for your message. I wanted to read that on the show because I really, really think it matters and it's important. Derek says, I'm glad to be a patron and support your work. I'm a college guy myself, so I know the struggle, and I wanted to help contribute in any way I can. Derek, I hope you have the money to support me. If $1 a month makes sense. Please, if you don't have the money, don't support me. I don't know how to, because I want your questions, and I hope you can financially. So if you're struggling with money, please, I understand that. I'm a college kid myself. I know how hard money is, and I just, man, it's cool that you're in college and you support me. That means a lot to me. This is the question from Derek. Derek says, lastly, is it possible to throw in a question from Ask Zach? Yeah, please do so. I want more questions. And by the way, we need more questions. Ask Zach. I'm running out of questions very quickly. Please, if support me on Patreon, ask more questions. I want them to come from you guys. It says, if so, it seems like every year a team flies under the radar and a team is always overhyped. Going into this NFL season, which teams can you see exceeding expectations and which team do you see underperforming? Personally, I think the Packers will disappoint this year, while the Jaguars can surprise people again, like in 2017. He said, thanks again. Greetings from Texas. Eagles fan from Texas, by the way, so it's always fun. That's brutal. Hope you don't live in Dallas. He said, also, good luck in your upcoming football season. Leave it on the field, my man. Leave it on the field, man. Derek, man, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. Now, I try to avoid opinion shows. So his question was, which team will go under the radar, which team is overhyped? I'm not sure who the media loves and who they don't love. Now, my suspicion, though, is that the Colts are not being talked about enough. The Indianapolis Colts are building something really, really special. Andrew Luck is an unbelievable quarterback, and nobody seems to notice. It's so bizarre to me. I've never seen a quarterback less appreciated than Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is not only a great quarterback, the Colts are entering year 2 with Frank Reich, their new head coach. They've been drafting unbelievably recently. The Colts are a really good playoff team. They were a playoff team last year, and they're better this year. The Colts are an underrated team more people should talk about. They might make it to the Super Bowl. They are that good, and if not this year, then next year or the year after. They have a great core of young, talented players that they drafted and have cheap contracts. They have Jack Doyle at tight end, Eric Ebron at tight end, T.Y. Hilton at wide receiver. They have Marlon Mack at running back, Deion Kane at receiver for the guy from Clemson who I loved in college, Justin Houston at defensive end. They have Bobby Okereke. Wow, I know the guy, I promise. Okereke from Stanford at linebacker, Darius Leonard at linebacker. They have a great offensive line they drafted through the draft. Man, I think the Colts are an underrated team in the NFL and should be more appreciated. Now, on the flip side, I think the 49ers could be disappointing because of their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers quarterback, played in 3 games last year, then tore his ACL. If the 3 games were any indication whether or not he's a good quarterback, I would be petrified if I'm a 49ers fan. His three games I saw on film were not impressive. He did not look good. He was holding onto the ball way too long. He was trying to do too much. Made a lot of mistakes. Now the question is, did Jimmy Garoppolo and will Jimmy Garoppolo improve? I think it's possible. So I think the Colts are an underrated, underappreciated team. I think the 49ers are a team that could be overhyped. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is wildly overpaid. And I was not impressed with what I saw on film last year. I don't feel good about that. A lot of 49ers fans listen to this podcast. I'm sorry to say I was not impressed with your quarterback last year. Derek, thank you for sharing your story. I'm rooting for you in life. And and mental health is a huge issue. If you're struggling, please go get help. And again, the suicide hotline is 1-800-273-8255. That is my mission with this show, is to talk about mental health. And, my brother took his life 3 years ago. It's a huge deal to me. And Derek, thank you for your question. The next question comes from Chris. I love this question. Said, hey, Zach, I'm a big fan of SOS and also of the football GOAT, Tom Brady, and New England Patriots. I'm not a Patriots fan, but I love myself some Tom Brady. He said, I really enjoyed the addition of this segment to your podcast, so I wanted to ask you a question. Well, thank you. And please, Chris, ask as many questions as you want. I love your guys' questions. So Chris says this, which do you think is more important in winning a Super Bowl? An elite quarterback such as Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, or an elite defense such as the Bears or the Rams? Thank you for considering my question, and hopefully you answer it. Keep up the great work, and I'll miss SOS when you take a break for college football. Chris, which is best, a defense or an elite quarterback? Can I say, both are really important? I think you kind of need both. You need it all. You need a great quarterback. You need a guy playing really well at quarterback, and you need a great roster. Now, I will say this. You don't need an elite quarterback. You don't need a top 5 quarterback to win a Super Bowl, but you need good quarterback play. So I guess maybe that's the answer to the question. An elite roster is more important. Dak Prescott with the Dallas Cowboys could win a Super Bowl, but he needs a lot of help and a good roster. I look at history, right? Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. And Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. What was the key ingredient for all of those Super Bowl wins? Those guys were never top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. They're not elite quarterbacks. They're good quarterbacks, though. Trent Dilfer, maybe that's a stretch to call him good. I've met him. Great guy, really nice. But yeah. But Nick Foles, Joe Flacco, they're good quarterbacks. Not elite, not top 5, certainly. They won Super Bowls because they had really good rosters. So maybe that's the answer to the question, Chris, is if I had to pick one, a great roster or a great quarterback, I'd have a really great roster with a good quarterback. But you still need good quarterback play. When Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos, he was gimpy, he was old, he was not the same. But in the Super Bowl, when his team needed him, he played good enough to win. Trent Dilfer played good enough in the moment. Nick Foles was good in the moment. You got to have good quarterback play or you can't win a Super Bowl. But you also got to have a good roster. You need a good roster to win a Super Bowl, but you're not going to win a Super Bowl if your quarterback stinks. But look, everybody knew that. But again, I guess that's the truth. When I'm faced with a decision, I would choose to have a great roster. I'll take Dak Prescott with a great roster. I'll take, Kirk Cousins. I'll take Joe Flacco with a great roster because guess what? Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl when he had a great roster. Okay, Jacob asked me a question. I'm going to turn around and grab something behind me. So Jacob asked a question. He says, sorry, I hit the mic. Jacob says, hey, Zach. Well, he first says, ask Zach. I would hope so. I just assume all questions now are like for ask Zach. That's what I do. He said, what's the story behind the 2 mooses behind you? Is it moose or meese? I'm going to say mooses this whole segment. I hope that's right. So these are my 2 moose. And I put them behind me on the show. Jacob, moose in my family used to symbolize my siblings. My dad had 3 mooses identical to this one. This is one of the 3. And each one represented me and my siblings. One for me, one for my brother Zane, and one for my brother Zeke. And when my brother died, it was really sad because my dad had 3 mooses and only 2 sons. And so he gave me this moose. I was on a road trip once. My dad he always brings one of the stuffed mooses with him on the trip, like a little adventure buddy. And I was messing around on my Instagram story, and I just had fun with it. And took as a picture on Instagram. You can see it if you want. You swipe to the right. It's one of the posts. But people loved it on my Instagram story. They kept calling the moose the unofficial mascot of Strong Opinion Sports. And so I just quietly put it behind me as a fun memento. And anybody who watched my Instagram story kind of got it and knew the inside joke. And so what that did is that led to someone sending me another moose. A fan sent me a moose through the mail. They decorated a shirt. It says SOS on it. I don't know if you can see it. They put a shirt on it. They put Zach Schomler on the moose. And that was amazing. And so, from now on, I was like, I'm going to put mooses behind me. That's going to be my thing. And when I someday get a P.O. box, that's the new fun thing I'm going to do. And you guys can send me silly mooses. That'd be fun. I would love to have a studio someday. Like you see Dan Patrick's show. I'm not a decorations guy. I hate junk. I hate crap. I don't have any trinkets. My house, my room is super boring. It's a bed, a nightstand, and a ton of notebooks because I write all the time. But the thing I would love to embrace is just have a background full of moose stuffed animals. That'd be really, really funny to me and like super weird because like, what does that mean? And the inside joke for everybody watching would be just really fun. And so someday when I have a P.O. box, I think I'll even put my college address out there because it's protected and I feel safer there. And I'll say, hey, send me mooses if you want. That'd be cool. So Jacob, that is what the mooses behind me mean, and that's why they're there. Okay, Noah asked a question. Noah says this. He says, what was one of the hardest things you had to learn as a quarterback, both on the field and in the locker room? Noah, the hardest thing for me as a quarterback was emotional poise. I could always throw the ball really well. I think I know how to read a defense really well. I've always loved doing that work and studying the playbook. For me, managing my emotions was the toughest battle. And it's not just as a quarterback. It's just in everyday life, learning how to face a tough situation and be calm and be chill. You don't want to be too high. You don't want to be too low. And you don't want to get stressed. In high school, I was always best when the pressure was on, because I just, for some reason, it unlocked something. I was like, oh yeah, we're down 8, we need to score, I have nothing to lose, and I just played great and was awesome. There were a couple times in high school I'm really proud of where there were moments where we needed to deliver, and I did. We had a game we lost on national television, but I scored a touchdown with a minute left. I threw a touchdown pass and I drove us down the field, threw a touchdown pass with a minute left, and I was like, man, if this fluke play hadn't happened, we were on command man for a long time where we kicked a field goal, or they kicked a field goal, we blocked it, they picked it up and ran for a touchdown. That was my team. If you ever watched Come On Man, that was my high school team. It sucked really bad. But I had a touchdown with a minute left, and I was proud of that. I had a game-winning, in my opinion, touchdown other than this fluky play. We won a game in the playoffs one time where we were down 21 at halftime to this perennial state champion and came back. I broke every record in that game, every passing record at our school I broke in that game. And, I think that being able to be calm in the moment was the biggest battle and the biggest thing I struggled with as a quarterback. I would have loved to have been taller, would have loved to have a stronger arm. Can't control those things, but what I always could control is my attitude, my effort, and learning how to coach myself into having mental poise was a huge deal to me. I used to always worry about stupid crap. I'd get really amped up at the beginning of games. And the more I learned to just embrace it and be cool with myself, I'm a quiet, introverted guy. I'm pretty weird and quirky, honestly. Watch my Instagram story. I'm a very weird dude. But I just accepted that that's who I am. I'm a low-key guy. And learning to embrace who I am and then learning to control my emotions in big moments. And not just control, but truly, it's not even controlling. It's saying, acknowledging, hey, this moment is really stressful. And you're in traffic or something happens, you're hiking, my girlfriend does this all the time. We'll be in a stressful situation. We go hey, this is stressful. Let's take a deep breath. It's all good. Why are we worried? We shouldn't be. And learning to acknowledge that and dealing with emotional poise. Maybe that's a different answer than you expected. I wish I could say my arm or this, but that's the thing I had to overcome the most. And I think what will help me the most this fall as a quarterback is I've worked really hard to become emotionally poised. So I like Jake Fromm so much. He really, I look up to him a lot, and it's really, really cool. The last question of the day comes from Miguel. Where is this paper? There it is. Miguel says this: Hey, Zach, I love your show. I tell all my friends about it because of the great content you put out. He said butt out, but I think he means put out. He said, I have 2 questions for you. Miguel, by the way, I'm going to read both. I'm going to answer one on the next one. How about that? I'll read both, and I'll read both again. I'll read the next one again on the other one. Anyways, point is this. He said, Zach, I have 2 questions for you. First of all, what do you think are the biggest needs for the Dallas Cowboys? And if you can improve one trait as a quarterback, what would it be, as in speed, height, arm strength? I'll answer that one tomorrow, the height, arm strength one. And maybe I won't. I think I kind of answered it today anyways. But the Dallas Cowboys, what do the Cowboys need? I'll be honest. Maybe an outside-the-box answer. The Cowboys need cap room. I really I might be the only one. Everyone says the Cowboys suck. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. I hear all these comments all the time. I love the direction the Dallas Cowboys are headed in. I think they have a great core of young players. Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott, Leighton Vander Esch at linebacker. I love Jalen Smith. They have a great offensive line. Still, I know they're not the same, but they're still a really good offensive line. And I think if they can just find a way to keep all their players on their roster, they're going to do really special things. As Dak Prescott gets better and they grow together as a team, I think the Cowboys have a lot of potential. The thing is, they just need to stay together. And so if the Cowboys can, in fact, find a way to stay together, maybe the way they create more cap room is they get rid of somebody. They let Robert Quinn walk away, or they let Ezekiel Elliott, they get rid of him and say, we want the cap space because we want to keep everybody else together. If the Cowboys can find a way to create more salary cap, maybe an impossible task, but that's what they should do. I really think that they have a good roster and a roster that can win a Super Bowl eventually. and maybe sooner than we think. A lot of people don't believe in that, but I really like their roster. But the key is they got to be able to keep all the pieces they have in Dallas. And that's the puzzle, the jigsaw puzzle that's really hard. So, Miguel, that's how I would answer that. They just need to find a way to keep their team together. Guys, thank you so much. Please ask more questions. I don't like acknowledging this, but it's true. Like, I'm running out of questions. I don't know if people are afraid to ask questions. I've gotten so many new Patreon supporters, but they're not all asking questions. And so please, if you support me on Patreon, send me a direct message or, comment on one of the posts I put on Patreon. Find a way through Patreon. It's the only way I accept them, but find a way through Patreon. Ask me questions. I have like 5 left, and that's it. So I want a lot. I want a giant pool to choose from. I don't want to have a ton. So please, if you're on Patreon, you support me on Patreon, find a way to send me a question because I want to hear your questions. I want to answer them. Our Patreon numbers have gone up, but the questions have not. So please, if you support me on Patreon, ask a bunch of questions. You can send me like 20 in one day. I'll get to them eventually. I have a giant document full of. It's just full of questions. Send me your questions. Caleb, I want to answer to you. I got your question. I'm going to answer it on the next show. So Caleb, I love you so much. You've supported me so much through the years. That is Ask Zach. Thank you so very much. One more thing. I wanted you guys, I zoomed out the camera. I wanted everybody to see this. This, by the way, is the room I record in. It's like, you can see my feet. It's a crappy desk. Like, I hope you guys understand that I don't know how it looks from the really tight angle I usually use, but this is the room I record in. This is what it looks like in my studio, quote studio. And it's just a basement. It's just, I've always wanted to share this and I never have. And so here it is. You're welcome. I love you guys, and I'm grateful you listen. So thank you so much. Have a great day. My name is Zach Schaumler. This is my podcast, Strong Opinion Sports. It is my favorite thing in the entire world. And you may not know, my dream when I graduate college eventually is to do this show as my full-time job. Now, I also want to be very upfront and honest about my plan and what's going on. I recently monetized my YouTube channel. What that means is that some of my videos make money through ad revenue. Now, it's fewer than you think. A lot of my videos get claimed. But in the past, I've received donations through the form of PayPal and Patreon.com. PayPal.me/Zach Schaumler. Patreon.com/Zach Schaumler. So because I'm making ad revenue, it felt weird to just get donations. I wanted to give something back to the people who support me on Patreon. So now there's a reward. If you support me on Patreon, you can submit questions at the dollar level or above. You just need to give $1 a month. If you do that, you can submit questions to a pool of questions where I look at. I'll read all the questions on Patreon, and I pick the top couple every episode and read them and answer them on a segment called Ask Zach. Pick the top couple questions and answer them at the end of every single episode. Now, that's for people who want to support me with money. If you have no money to give, I totally understand. I've actually never supported anybody on Patreon. I feel kind of weird about that. I'm a broke college kid myself. I totally understand. But if you believe in me and if you believe in my dream and still want to help me, one thing you can do is help me grow by telling your friends about Strong Opinion Sports. Share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is. Help me grow by telling your friends about Strong Opinion Sports. Guys, thank you so much. I know that was a long spiel. I really appreciate it, and hope you have a great day.